At my husband's work dinner, I got called a loser, then I took action. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. Loser, Victor Hale said lightly, like a joke he'd practiced on the ride over, and the table laughed because money teaches people when to laugh. I felt Jason's hand stiffen on my knee and then disappear. I'm Maya, 29, a paraeducator at Jefferson Middle. I spend my mornings coaxing 7th graders to read out loud without apologizing first. People tell me it's small work, but last week a kid wrote, "I finally finished a book," in pencil hearts on my desk, and I felt 10 feet tall. Jason sells strategic partnerships at Victor's company, Halebridge. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration dinner. Instead, it felt like a stage. "What do you do again?" A woman asked, voice all velvet knives. "Support," I said. "Students with IEPs." Victor grinned. "Admirable," he said, but Jason's world moves fast. I pictured cafeteria trays, the smell of dry erase markers, my students' anxious eyes. Fast isn't the same as important, I wanted to say. I swallowed and reached for water. Jason stared at his plate. "Come on, Maya," Victor added. "Cheer up. This is a winner's table." Somewhere in me, a door clicked closed. I have never needed a title to know my value. But I also know every bully reveals a weakness if you wait. I didn't know the weakness would be numbers, and I didn't know the numbers would whisper at me before the main course arrived. Then Victor lifted his glass and called me a loser. Jason and I met in line at a food truck when our city still pretended rent and decency could coexist. He brought me flowers in paper cups, apologized when he was late, listened to stories about kids whose names no one learned. Then promotions found him. "You could come to more functions," he said, slipping cufflinks through polished shirts. "It helps when partners look the part." I once wore thrifted navy to an awards night. Someone asked if I was staffing registration. We laughed about it, and then we didn't. His colleagues believed kindness was currency that depreciated. Earlier this week, a coworker posted a meme. "Date night with my nonprofit queen. She volunteers her ambition." Jason didn't like it. He just didn't unlike it either. "It's not personal," he said. "It's culture." I told him culture is just a bunch of choices made out loud. "You know Victor's rough," Jason admitted in the car to dinner. "He's old school." "Old school like Latin," I said. "Or old school like hazing?" He drummed the steering wheel and changed the song. When we arrived, I promised myself I'd smile, sip, and go home early. Then Victor's joke cracked the room open like a rotten egg. I felt the smell before the logic. And Jason's eyes flickered toward Victor first. I watched the flicker and felt something foundational tilt. Humiliation does something strange to sound. It turns laughter into rain on tin. So at first I thought the next noise was just the storm of it all, until I realized a junior analyst near Victor whispered, "The numbers don't match," into her whine. "Relax," another man muttered. Q3 rolled forward. Victor has it handled. A server set down scallops. Someone joked about donor dinners and off-the-books hospitality. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. The table was thin and secrets were loud. My phone buzzed. A school volunteer asking for tomorrow's field trip headcount. My life, tidy and unglamorous, waited for me like a clean kitchen light. Victor leaned back. "Jason, your projections were optimistic," he said. "That's why we need winners." Jason smiled too quickly. "We'll land the Lakehurst account next week." "Lakehurst," the junior analyst blurted. "Too much air, not enough discretion." They emailed procurement. "They're weeks out." She went pale. Victor's eyes hardened, then softened into charm. I watched Jason swallow pride and fear together, a cocktail you can't send back. "Maya," Victor said brightly. "Tell us about whatever it is." "Reading," I said. "And responsibility." "Adorable," he replied, already turning away. If numbers didn't match, whose numbers were they supposed to be? I wasn't sure why the thought stuck like a burr, but it did. And Jason asked for another drink he didn't usually order. The dinner didn't collapse. It drifted off a cliff with velvet ropes. A server brought a manila envelope, looked confused, and asked for Victor. "Who's that?" Victor joked, but his hand moved first. He slid the envelope under his chair with a smile I'd seen on principals mid-crisis, serene and sweating. "Probably another sponsorship pitch," he said. The junior analyst, Hannah, I learned later, tugged her sleeve and looked at me like a person lost in a hallway. "Bathroom?" I asked, and she nodded too fast. In the corridor, she whispered, "Please ignore me," which is how you beg for help when power is listening. "I heard Lakehurst pulled," she said. "Revenues propped with donor perks." Her mouth twisted. "Victor calls them accelerators." We were interrupted by Jason. "Everything okay?" he asked, eyes darting. "Fine." I lied, because saying not fine in that hallway would be a bomb. Back at the table, Victor clinked glass again. "To wives who support ambition," he said, watching me. Jason laughed lightly, a sound I didn't recognize. "Maya's tough," he added, "like a defense you use on a dog." "Toughness isn't a brand," I said, but the room had moved on. Then the envelope slid open at Victor's feet and a sheet spilled out, summons language peeking like a bruise. We rode home, without music. City lights smeared, and Jason's jaw worked like he was chewing glass. "Why didn't you defend me?" I asked, calm like the center of a storm. "Because you didn't need it," he said too quickly. "You're strong." "Strong people still deserve witnesses," I replied. Silence beat time between us. "In our apartment," he said, "you can be intense, Maya. They don't get that." "They get everything they want," I said. My phone pinged, an unknown number. "If you saw something, document everything." No signature. 10 seconds later. Priya? The HR partner I'd met once in a hallway at Jason's office. I typed, "Who is this?" No answer. I stared at the word document like it was a verb. Jason stood in the doorway. Victor was joking, he tried. "Don't be dramatic." I thought of my student who flinched at sudden noises because adults called it teasing. "Dramatic is for theater," I said. This was strategy. He exhaled, softened. "I'm sorry." I believed he meant it. I didn't believe he understood it. He reached for me. I stepped back. "If numbers don't match, whose number is lying?" I asked. He hesitated. "It's complicated." Complicated is a tarp powerful people throw over holes. I opened a new note and typed tonight's time, place, phrases, faces. Then Jason's phone lit up with Victor's name, and the preview said, "Delete your Lakehurst drafts immediately. Sleep is where questions breed." By sunrise, I had 3. Why duplicate receipts? Why backdated invites? Why call me a loser loud enough to cover whispers? At school, I supervised breakfast duty, logged IEP goals, and wrote "You Matter" postcards for kids who'd missed the field trip fee. On lunch break, I compared Jason's calendar invite for the Lakehurst pitch, dated last month, to a screenshot he had accidentally airdropped to our TV last night that showed the same meeting created yesterday. Versions tell on their creators. That evening, Jason showered while I cleaned the kitchen. Then I saw it. A corporate card statement in the mail basket, addressed to him, stamped reissue. The last 4 digits didn't match his usual card. Inside were 2 pages, restaurant charges at places that don't print itemized receipts, labeled donor relations. Jason isn't donor-facing. I breathed in slow, out slower. "Priya?" I texted the unknown number. "If you need lawful guidance to preserve info, say yes." Came back. "Yes," I typed, hands cold. She replied, "No hacking, no passwords, no private devices. Save public docs, dates, locations, who said what. Email to yourself from your account. BCC a counsel if you have one." Counsel. I didn't, but I had a library card and an honest spine. Jason's phone buzzed again. "Victor, bring burner for tomorrow's offsite." Breadcrumbs are boring until they point somewhere terrible. I started with what was public. LinkedIn event photos tagged Halebridge Donor Summit, September 14th. The caption listed Lakehurst execs who, according to their company page, were on a hiking trip that weekend. I saved the discrepancy. Then I asked Hannah, the junior analyst, for coffee by DM, framing it as, "I'm sorry about last night." She replied in 2 words, "It's unsafe." She added a time and a cafe 2 blocks from HQ. "I can't share files," she wrote. "I can share memories." She told me about expense spreadsheets that refused to reconcile, invoices to a consulting firm with no website, and a glossary only insiders could decode. Accelerators, bridge dinners, harmony fees. "He signs off everything," she whispered. "He says donor culture isn't audited." I recorded only ambient notes, dates, vendors, amounts she remembered. No devices near her work content. That night, as Jason slept, I scrolled public calendars of restaurants named on the card statement. Several listed private Halebridge tastings on nights Victor told the board he was mentoring scholarships. I placed sticky notes. September 14th, October 2nd, October 27th. The pattern felt like sheet music written upside down. I needed someone who could read it upright. Priya finally texted, "If you want counsel, ask for Ochoa. Independent. Ethical." The what revealed itself before the why, like thunder arriving ahead of lightning. It was kickbacks, tidy, deniable, laundered through donor hospitality, where luxury vendors comped obscene extras in exchange for contracts, and Victor signed them as relationship accelerators. It was also something uglier. Priya said 2 harassment complaints had disappeared into NDAs with transition bonuses that looked like scholarships. The hush fund was padded by fake invoice overages, $9, $8.50 here, for $1,400 there, kept just under thresholds that trigger automatic review. Jason's name appeared only as attendee on dinners and flights, but the risk haloed him anyway. If the ship sank, deckhands drowned first. I put the phone down and sat on the kitchen floor. My students would be sleeping, open-mouthed, dreams aglow with field trips and recess. I felt shame's red heat, then something cooler. Focus. Why? I asked aloud. Vanity? Bonuses? Control? Priya couldn't speak freely, but she could nudge. Follow the vendor with no website, she texted. I looked. Veritable Consulting LLC, registered to a mailbox store, managed by a trust with Victor's college roommate as trustee. The wind in my apartment sounded like a person thinking, if I pulled this thread, I might unravel Jason's job and our marriage. If I didn't, I would live in a home stapled to a lie. Then my doorbell rang softly, twice, like a warning whispered through metal. Attorney Ochoa's office smelled like old paper and citrus cleaner, an honest scent. I can't pay much, I said. You don't owe me now, she replied. You owe me truth. She explained scope. I could preserve what was public, jot contemporaneous notes, record my own conversations where lawful, and forward guidance emails to a private account. No one wants to watch a whistle blow, Ochoa said, but everyone listens once it's blown. I compiled a folder, screenshots of restaurant calendars, LinkedIn timestamps, Jason's reissued card letter, my timeline, and the manila envelope's glimpse of a summons, date, court, case number I'd memorized. Ochoa drafted a short memo documenting how I acquired each item. If retaliation comes, she said, this helps. I cried, quietly and inconveniently. You're doing this for strangers, she said. That's not small. At home, Jason asked if I'd forgiven him. I'm choosing clarity first, I answered. He reached for me. Maya, don't nuke my career to make a point. I'm trying to keep you alive, I said. He flinched. I added names to my witness list. Hannah, a maitre d' who'd seen comped bottles, a driver who'd shuttled donors to places with no receipts. Priya texted, board review next Thursday. Evidence window is closing. And Victor finally messaged me directly. Coffee tomorrow? Let's clear the air, Maya. Victor chose a lobby bar with mirrored ceilings that made everyone look taller. I was teasing, he said, palms up. You're tough. I'm consistent, I said. Tough is branding. He leaned in. Jason's a talent. You're protective. I respect that. His smile had the weight of a hand on the back of a neck. You like working with kids? He asked. Admirable. But this is a high-stakes arena. We make accommodations. Like accelerators and harmony fees? I asked, watching his eyes stutter. He recovered instantly. You've misunderstood jargon. He slid a small velvet box toward me, as if I were proposing to him. Inside, diamond studs, tasteful, expensive. For the rough night, he said. Considerate, hospitality. My chest cooled. I don't accept tips for breathing, I said, closing the box. And I document gifts I'm offered. He laughed quietly. Careful, he said. Ambition needs friends. So does integrity, I replied. He sipped water. You wouldn't want Jason implicated in something he doesn't understand. Then stop implicating him, I answered. He blinked. Board meets Thursday, he said. We're aligned, yes? We will be, I said, standing. He called after me, voice silk over wire. Don't confuse marriage for leverage, Maya. And then Priya texted. Victor just pinged legal to preempt you with HR. We set the trap with ordinary tools. A calendar invite labeled Q3 retrospective, process lessons, a neutral room, a borrowed projector, and naming conventions that sounded boring enough to survive scrutiny. Priya handled the formalities, notice, attendance, the clause that allowed third-party counsel, which is how Ochoa sat 2 chairs from me in a navy suit that looked like a boundary. Jason arrived pale. "What is this?" he whispered. "A process lesson," I said. Victor entered late. Handshake sharp, tie loud. 2 board members dialed in, disembodied authority. The room hummed with fluorescent hum, the sound of ordinary places where extraordinary choices arrive on paper. "Let's begin," Priya said. "We're reviewing expense control." I clicked to slide 1, a timeline of donor dinners against vendor award dates. Slide 2, LinkedIn photos contradicting claimed meeting dates. Slide 3, the mailbox store LLC, the roommate trustee, the mapping to approved vendor lists. Victor smiled. "Perfectly. Conspiracy theorists are adorable," he said. "Maya is overzealous." "We'll let the patterns speak," Priya replied. Ochoa nodded at me, tiny as a heartbeat. I added restaurant calendars, comped invoices, and Jason's reissue letter. "I didn't authorize these," Jason said softly. "Attendance is an authorization," Victor cut in. "He's an eager staffer. Overclassification happens." "Then explain the summons," I said, reading the case number aloud. Victor's smile trembled like glass under base. We projected the summons text, public record, highlighted, and watched a Nile Gray's calculation across Victor's face. "Vendor dispute," he said. "Baseless." Priya toggled to a slide with internal code names, accelerators, harmony fees, cross-referenced against payments just under review thresholds. "Explain the consistency under $10,000, she asked. "Operational prudence," he said. "We spread spend." "Explain Veritable," I said. "We diversify consulting." "Explain the non-disclosure, transition bonuses aligned with HR complaints," Ochoa added evenly. Victor's mask slipped. Contempt flashed like tooth. "This is theater," he snapped. "You think the board cares about minor hospitality variations?" One board member finally spoke. "We care about fraud exposure and retaliation costs." Silence calcified. Jason cleared his throat. "Victor told me to delete Lakehurst drafts," he said, voice shaking. I didn't. He forwarded the message to the board address on screen. Victor pivoted to me. "You hated me since dinner," he said. "You're punishing Jason through me." "I'm protecting people you call accelerators," I said. He laughed, short and mean. "You're a paraeducator with a martyr complex." "I'm a witness with a calendar," I replied. Priya ended the meeting formally and opened an investigation protocol. Victor stood, knuckles white, and called this a witch hunt. Then security asked him to wait in an adjacent room for a debrief. After exposure comes echo, emails dinging like distant alarms, Slack channels going dark, HR posting interim guidance with corporate platitudes shaped like life vests. Victor was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Halebridge announced an audit of vendor relationships and expense controls. Anonymous comments sprouted like mushrooms after rain. Some called me brave, others called me a social climbing saboteur. A parent at my school recognized me from a leaked photo and whispered, "Is it true?" I said, "It's complicated and I still love my students." Jason moved into the guest room for a week we called cooling, then we called it space, then we called it nothing. "You embarrassed me," he said one night. "You endangered me," I replied. He cried, and so did I, the kind that hurts your ears. He started therapy through the company's EAP. I found a counselor who didn't flinch when I said gaslighting. Hannah sent a one-line email. "Thank you." The maitre d' wrote a statement. The driver confirmed pickups tied to cash handoffs. I logged every incident of blowback. A slashed tire, a withheld invitation to a family barbecue, a cold shoulder at the grocery store. Priya forwarded an internal memo. Expect resignations. The first arrived that Friday, with Victor's name on it, effective immediately. Healing wasn't cinematic. It was paperwork and schedules and boundaries written like vows. Ochoa drafted a letter for Halebridge. Any use of my name required consent. Any retaliation against Jason implicated policy. Any settlement with whistle-related elements needed transparency. Jason and I wrote rules on a notebook page. No minimizing. No just joking. No career talk after 8 p.m. Weekly check-ins even if we're angry. He asked if we could rebuild. I said rebuilding isn't repainting. It's checking the foundation and maybe moving. He took a copy of the rules and taped it inside his closet. Priya invited me to share process recommendations with the board, plain language expense categories, automatic review triggers at randomized amounts, donor hospitality logged with itemized receipts, an independent hotline. I spoke for 10 minutes and didn't apologize once. At school, I taught a student to breathe through a panic attack by counting colors in the room. "You're tough," he said after. "No," I said, smiling. "I'm practiced." Jason brought me tea, cooked twice, and didn't ask for praise. He apologized to my face, not to my shadow. And one night he said, "I didn't defend you because I wanted them to like me." I said, "Now like you enough to defend me first." He nodded, shaking. If titles were weather, mine would be steady cloud cover with warm patches. I learned that dignity doesn't rise with income graphs. It grows when you refuse to translate cruelty as culture. I still grade spelling lists and teach shy kids to read their names without whispering. Sometimes I pass the restaurant where Victor raised his glass and think about how rooms remember things you won't. Halebridge posted new policies. Priya got promoted reluctantly. Hannah transferred teams. The driver started his own licensed service with actual contracts. Jason and I are trying. Not perfect, threaded through, not done. We don't go to dinners we wouldn't invite our future kid to. If you're facing a room that laughs at you, document what the room fears most. Dates, amounts, approvals, names, who told who to delete what. Bring an ally, even if it's your own clear notes. If someone calls you a loser, ask what they're trying to hide behind the noise. The night before the board meeting, I wrote one sentence on a sticky note and kept it in my pocket. Small work builds big courage when it matters. I still have it, creased and brave. And sometimes, when the city hums low, I can hear the room go quiet again.